West McKenna Hunter, he's been here about a year now.
Oh,
Yeah. You know, new temporary mechanic laws.
that's what, yeah, that's what they,
Oh, Anthony,
who's Yanni?
who's in charge right now until they hire.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Development Review Committee meeting. We'll do a call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, August 3rd. If anybody wishes to participate in today's meeting, you'll need to email your phone number into planning@cityoflaverne.org so we could bring you into the meeting, or if you would register to attend on Zoom, they'll use the raise hand function if you'd like to ask questions. Applicants, you will be brought into the room after the presentation by staff to help to answer any questions on items on today's agenda. With that, we're going to call the meeting over. Like I said, we'll do a quick round of self-introductions. My name is Eric Scher, the Community Development Director.
Dominic Milano, former city engineer, filling in for Cody Howing, who's on maternity leave.
Richard Martinez with Public Works.
Vanessa Norwood, Planning Department.
Jessica. I'm muted.
Jessica Estrella, Fire Department.
All right, thank you. This is the time set aside in today's meeting for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. At this time, we have not received any public comments. So we're going to go ahead and close the public comment period. For that, for items not on the agenda, we'll move to the approval of the action minutes from the July 6th, 2021. Richard, do you want to make a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Abstain.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so 2-0 passes. Thank you. All right, so we're going to get on to the projects. First project is an annexation proposal for about 19.5 acres on the edge of the city of Laverne. Typical address is 500 East Baseline Road. And Vanessa, you have your staff report.
Good morning, Vanessa Norwood, project planner. This project, which is located on the north side of Baseline Road and east of Rodeo Lane, is comprised of 6 applications. An annexation request into the city of Laverne for a 19.44 acre parcel, a general plan amendment to establish the low density residential land use designation, a pre-annexation zone change to establish the PR3D zoning for the property with hillside development overlay zone, subdivision of the parcel into 9 lots for the development of 7 single-family dwelling units and 2 open space lots, a precise plan review to determine conformance with the city's general plan, zoning, and applicable regulations, and a tree removal request for removal of 4 significant trees. Precise plan review. The project includes 9 lots on a 19.44 acre parcel. There are 7 lots ranging in size from 10,079 square feet to 152,123 square feet, a debris basin lot, and an open space lot. Access to the units would be provided via Baseline Road and terminating in a cul-de-sac. A 200-foot road extending west from Broken Spur Road and a maintenance road leading to the debris basin. Elevation plans feature craftsman and Spanish Mediterranean styles of architecture. The proposed floor plans for these units range in size from 4,500 to 7,268 square feet. All residences except lot 7 contain 4 bedrooms and 4.5 baths with an attached 3-car garage. Lot 7 would contain 6 bedrooms, 6.5 baths, and a 3-car garage. The proposed structures comply with the minimum front, rear, and side yard setbacks and maximum allowed building height. All residences provide for off-street parking spaces, and a 6-foot-high block wall is proposed between and behind the homes. No deviation from the zoning code is requested. Tree removal. There are several significant trees on the property. The request is to remove 4 oak trees that are proposed to be replaced at a 4-to-1 ratio for a total of 16 trees, while 85 significant trees will remain. The trees are proposed for removal because they're in a location where they cannot be preserved. They're either in the proposed maintenance roadway or nearby. Therefore, the applicant is requesting removal of these trees. It has been demonstrated that reasonable and necessary access to the property cannot be obtained if these trees are preserved. In addition, the draft mitigated negative debt contains a mitigation measure regarding required replacement and protection of remaining trees. The Development Review Committee is being asked to determine that this replacement is appropriate in view of the goals of Chapter 17.78, Preservation and Protection and Removal of Trees, and approve tree removal case number 60-19. In addition, the Development Review Committee is being asked to determine that precise plan review case number 102-18 is consistent with the zoning code, that the architectural quality and design meets the intent of the general plan and proposed zoning for the property. Annexation. The proposed annexation of this vacant land from unincorporated Los Angeles County into the city of Laverne would allow the development of 7 dwelling units and associated infrastructure. The site is located within the city's sphere of influence, which designates this area as hillside residential. Due to the existing topography, combined with the city's limitation regarding hillside development, only the southern 5.59 acre portion of the property site is proposed for development. The annexation would be a contiguous and seamless connection to the city of Laverne boundary. General plan amendment. Although the property is currently within the jurisdiction of the County of Los Angeles, it also is within the city of Laverne sphere of influence. It has a Laverne general plan designation of hillside residential, which allows 0 to 2 units per acre. The proposed general plan designation for this parcel is low density residential, which allows 0 to 5 units per acre. The project complies with the lot size requirements and would have a density of less than 1.5 units per acre. Therefore, the density of the project complies with the proposed general plan land use designation of up to 5 units per acre. This land use designation is also consistent with surrounding properties that are within the city of Laverne. The project has been determined to be consistent with applicable implementation measures listed in the land use element of the general plan. Pre-annexation zone change. The property has a current Los Angeles zoning designation of A-1-15,000. Once annexed, the property would be zoned PR 3D HDOZ, which is 3 detached units per acre with the hillside development overlay. The zoning includes the overlay zone. The zoning, including the overlay zone, is consistent with the zoning of the adjacent and nearby properties within the city limits. The proposed zone implements the general plan designation for this area and establishes standards for orderly and harmonious development of these units. The hillside development overlay zone provides supplemental standards for the development on hillside areas in the city. The project is consistent with these standards. Vesting tentative tract map. The proposed vesting tentative tract map would allow the 19.44 acre parcel to be subdivided into 9 lots. A 5.59 acre area along the southerly portion of the site would contain 7 dwelling units. An 8th lot is designated as a debris basin, and the 9th lot is dedicated to open space. A 36-foot wide street is proposed to access the homes, and an existing maintenance road is proposed to be improved and enhanced in order to access and maintain the debris basin. The vesting tentative map has been reviewed for compliance with city standards and determined to be in accordance with Chapter 16 of the Laverne Municipal Code and Subdivision Map Act. Environmental review. An initial study was completed for the project, and a mitigated negative declaration was prepared and circulated in accordance with CEQA requirements. The mitigation measures included in the M&D are related to biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, and tribal cultural resources. Staff finds that with certain mitigation measures, the project will not have a significant impact on the environment. Staff recommends that the Development Review Committee recommend approval of the proposed annexation, general plan amendment, pre-annexation zoning, and vesting tentative tract map for this project to the Planning Commission and City Council. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Vanessa. Committee members have questions of staff. Let me go ahead and bring the applicants in. Mary's also your applicant, correct?
Not on file.
Good morning.
Good morning. Able to hear us?
Yes, we can. Thank you for joining us. Just making sure, Steve, you're on, you're muted and video off, but I just want to make sure you should be connected in the room. So first, I guess, do we have questions of staff to begin with while Steve connects?
I have a number of questions concerning the project. To start off, Steve Hunter may be the only one that can answer some of the questions. But let's get started. The staff report and the conditions of approval are basically written for as a private street. Okay, is that the case, that this is going to be a private street or a public street?
My understanding was that originally it was supposed to be a private street, but then I didn't see anything on the map, and I assumed that it was a public street. So there's some confusion there as to what's being proposed on the map. We need to get clarification from Steve.
Because the map calls it basically out as a public street.
Public street,
Okay,
yes,
it's a street, which basically designates that it's going to be public.
yes.
So we need to get that kind of resolved initially, and then if indeed it's going to be a public street, I wanted to ask Steve to respond to the fact that the cross section now shows that the street width from right of way to right of way is 48 feet.
Mhm.
Is that what it's been for the last 3 or 4 years as this tentative map has been floating through the process?
Yes.
Start with that first.
Yeah, I mean, I need Steve to connect. I've asked him to unmute. Steve, if you're having problems connecting, I suggest you log off and come back on. And we can try to let you in the room again. But on our side, it looks like you're on, and there you go.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Steve,
The 48-foot section's been the same for quite a long time. Our intent was it for it to be a public street.
okay. Now, we need to make a decision whether this is going to go public or private. Because that if it goes public street, a number of the conditions are going to have to change because they're all set up to go private. The development itself is set up basically to go private also, in that we're requiring front yard landscaping to be provided by the developer versus the individual property owners. And so there's about 10 different conditions of approval and standard conditions of approval that need to be modified in order to make that work.
Since the DRC this morning is not approving the map, we are making a recommendation on that, but also, so we're doing pretty much architecture, design, site layout, as well as the tree removal application is what's before us this morning.
Okay, I'll comment right now on the architecture. I have no issues with it. The site layout, I've been working on that thing for 3 or 4 years, with the applicant. I have no issues with that, with the exception of there's been conversation over the years of the access that's coming from the private street or private road driveway on the east side of the project.
For lot 7.
Yeah, so lot 7.
Yeah.
I couldn't read it on the small print on this thing last night. I'll take it to be lot 7.
Yeah, right here.
And my recollection, talking to Mr. Hunter, was the fact that, yes, they had the authorization to use that driveway to access lot 7. I think that should be somewhere put into the staff report.
Okay.
So there's no question about it, that it is there.
And Steve, you did secure that, correct?
Yes, we have. The neighbors are in support of that. We did agree that we would extend a water line and a possibility of a connection of a sewer lateral to that residence. So I mean, all subject to city approval.
Where's the water line coming from?
It would be coming from an easement up through lot 7.
Is it Laverne water or Golden State?
It would be City of Laverne water.
So, yeah, I mean, that's fine if you extend it to your property line, but as you know, that we can't approve a new service connection without annexation there. But that's kind of, I think, what the anticipation is that the neighbors would go through an annexation process themselves, in which case then the city could provide them water and sewer services through that easement on lot 7.
That's correct. We would provide them with the opportunity to make a connection.
But no connection.
No connection.
Right, okay, moving back onto that. So the next thing has to do with the debris basin itself. Who's going to be maintaining the debris basin?
It is designed to county standards to be maintained by the county and transferred to the county.
Perfect, okay. Then that resolves a couple of the other issues that Vanessa, you and I talked about on easements. If it is a public roadway, then a lot of the easement stuff kind of disappears out of the staff reports because we automatically have the easements in there. And we just have to make sure that on the final track map that we got granted easements to the LA County to maintain coming through the public street.
But lot 8, Steve, would be owned in fee by the HOA.
Lot 8 would be dedicated to the county of Los Angeles.
So the county would be the landowner as well. They would own the whole thing.
That's correct.
And that's resolved a whole lot of issues that can pop up. I got another city where they didn't get transferred to county and I got issues with that now.
So would you like to just make sure we're clarifying that by a condition of approval,
Yes.
that that be the case?
Yes.
So that way it resolves. So we'll modify those conditions related to the easement or that concern to make sure that the conditions are modified to reflect that lot 8 would be transferred to the county of Los Angeles for ownership and ongoing maintenance of the debris basin.
That's correct. The open space lot, who is going to maintain the open space lot? If you look at the Fish and Game report, Fish and Game is trying to has us transferring it to some conservancy organization, plus they're off the limb, shouldn't say that, of wanting us to annex other properties into open space.
Right.
So who's going to maintain that lot?
I'll defer that to Steve as well, because we had that discussion.
Lot 8 is intended to be an open space lot to the HOA to be transferred to a public entity, Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy or other mountain restoration trust at some point after the project's been developed. We've worked out with staff on the open space areas. If some of the open space, as the project is moving forward with its mitigation, some of the vegetation habitat on the open space lot. Once we also record any easements for fuel modification for the HOA to maintain over the open space lot, then at that point, it would be transferred to a public entity to take over the parcel.
But in the meantime, there's no guarantee that that happens. So at the very minimum, the HOA will be responsible until that happens.
Yes, that's the intent, is that the HOA will be responsible for the lot until it can be transferred.
Yeah, I think the conditions to read that, desire to get transferred. Speaking of, when I brought up fishing game. Their tree replacement in their report requires 5-1. Our replacement is 4-1. Do we trump them or they trump us?
So the mitigation measures as written by the consultant
4-1.
is still the 4-1 for the city's policy. So I don't know that the Fish and Wildlife, they can make a request. Those are requests. But as we already have in our outline in our own municipal code, what our replacement requirement is, and they're meeting that requirement, I don't think there's any other further action that's needed. Perfect.
Okay, we talked about the conditions for the water line, the open space, vesting track map. Okay, this is the vesting track map, which has certain conditions under the map act. Some of those are basically, we're reviewing the architectural features here. That becomes the rule. That is the condition. They have to build this as it's proposed here under the vesting track map. Vesting track map also, all these conditions have to apply. They cannot be modified without going back for some type of hearing process. I want everybody to realize the fact that this locks in this project, this, we can't make changes and they can't make changes once this is a vesting map. And that's a lot of times gets kind of lost in the processing, but that's what a vesting map does. Want everybody to know that. Steve is very familiar with that. And just so the developer also understands that, the rest of the city staff understands that. Under condition number 24, we talk about improvement plans are necessary for letters of credit or cash bonds. They can also have a performance bond. if they don't have to put up the cash, they don't have to put up a letter of credit. And now that it's all public improvements, it's very simple. And I don't have to argue with anybody on a private improvements have to bond for also. But also, it's besides the city engineer to approve the bonding amount, the city attorney also needs to approve the bonding amount. Not the amount, but the letter of credit and for the performance bond itself to make sure it's rated correctly.
So would you like condition number 24 to be modified to add performance bond
Yeah,
as
to
well?
add the last sentence in there says approved by the city engineer and the city attorney prior to recordation of the final amount.
Number 24.
That's 24.
It just says approved by the city.
Yeah, it should be city engineer,
You want it to say city engineer.
city engineer and city attorney. Want to make sure we bring, I mean, I'll be here when this comes through, and I just want to make sure that the city attorney gets involved in it.
And allow for performance bond versus.
That is correct.
Okay.
20, back over to condition 21. This has to do with utilities, and it basically specified that the city engineer is the one that signs off on too, but the public works director is also going to get involved in this because it's going to be his water line and his sewer line.
Okay,
That's going up that street.
so add public works director. to
Yes.
that position.
29 is now fine, as long as we're going to public street. 33, that has to do with vector control.
Mhm.
And we got bullet point A and B, which has nothing to do with vector control in there. So I think we left something out
I
of
will
that condition.
verify, yes.
Under condition 35, this is more for Eric. Condition 35, this is for the driveway treatment, the enhanced paving and all the other neat stuff. It says community development department. Does that include the city engineer, as far as you're concerned?
Yes.
Okay. I would need to check it for the structural section.
Sure, yeah, they'll be,
We're not a private street. Light fixtures, okay. Condition 40, front yard landscape. Are we requiring the developer to put the front yard landscaping in?
yeah, we always do on subdivisions.
Interior fence design location, item 40, condition 42. Also requires the fire department to approve the fencing. Is that correct? Jessica, that the fire department wants to look at condition 42?
Yeah, you normally don't sign off on fence locations, so I'm curious as to why that was on there. That might have been a
Carryover.
carryover from a previous project.
Yeah, and I think the carryover from previous project has to do with a PUD or specific plan on private streets.
So I'll do the fire department.
Yeah,
And if Jessica needs your fire department needs to be in there, I don't care. It just,
these are just 6-foot garden walls primarily between the properties, so.
Yeah, we only care if the gates are manually operated or electronically operated across the vehicle access.
There are no vehicle gates on this project, so.
So we don't really have a say in that.
Going to the standard conditions of approval. Page 3 of 7, bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. It says exterior architectural colors and finish shall match those of existing structures.
Carryover.
Yeah, I mean, it's really
I would
match the plans.
And the condition below that we talked about, I don't think we have an assistant city manager right now,
Yeah. it's
but I don't know what
standard.
else, what we're gonna
Well,
do.
Yeah, so that's fine. I mean, it obviously would then go to the city manager.
We talked about the Benito Unified School District.
It isn't been even.
Okay.
I should research
I
that.
know there's a change up there somewhere up on that hill that goes to.
Further north, yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I've been here too long.
No, too much.
Now that it's gonna be, the storm drain is gonna be public, we know it's gonna be public. And we know we're gonna have sidewalk on at least one side of the street. The rest of the stuff, no stairs on the way. think we talked earlier about Fish and Game and some of the requirements, some of the stuff that they have in here, that of annexation of the adjacent properties to open space, and we're not going forward with any of that.
Well, the mitigation measure does still now indicate for the purchase of extra open space. Correct?
Yeah.
So basically the Fish and Wildlife letter that was submitted was reviewed by the environmental consultant who has made sure that the MND that's been prepared addresses the concerns that have been raised by the state. So the final mitigation measures for the project in part go to satisfy the requirement or the requests by Fish and Wildlife, the ones that they felt was necessary for this project.
Under the soils investigation, or under soils investigation, the phase 1 report contradicts something that was in the Fish and Game report. The Fish and Game basically says this was a vacant area, that type of stuff. The phase 1 report, the soils report indicates that there was a house on that site at one time and possibly a barn. Okay, which has no environmental impacts as far as the soils guy and phase 1 guys go. But it just the Fish and Game report says one thing, and reality is something different on it, just as a note.
You just want that as part of the record.
As part of the record, yeah. Another question for probably Steve is there's a percolation, couple sheets in the soils report, but I didn't see the follow-up on the percolation. How much it's actually going to perk and that type of stuff wasn't really clear. But again, that was page 800 of this report, and I think I'll start to lose it at that point. And so eventually we're going to need it, because I know you use Filtera systems as part of your design. At least that's what your hydrology report. And again, if it's a public street, Richard, you probably and Sean need to weigh in on that type of stuff, because the Filtera systems with the tree and all the other neat stuff that goes with it. And I assume that is because we're not perking on the site.
We are proposing some on-site percolation and infiltration. We do have adequate infiltration. If you look at construction note 8, you'll see that we are proposing a type of rain garden as part of the front landscaping.
We'll have to discuss that, the use of the rain gardens during the process. We use rain gardens in another project here in the city, and they have a tendency to get filled in.
I'm familiar with that project.
Yeah, you reviewed here on that project too. So we'll need to discuss how we're going to do that at some point.
Okay.
So anyway, the report needs to be a little bit clearer. Once you submit the map plan check and actually design stuff, that we have a better percolation section in there. So my plan checker or whoever's plan checking, it's not mine anymore. We'll take care of that.
Yeah, as the project moves forward with the grading plans, there'll be more specific locations where some of these structures will be located, will have its own individual percolation test. But for the tentative map, we just did generalized locations to indicate the site was suitable for percolation. But on the grading plan and the final soils report, it'll be more specific to the locations.
Lot 7 is a very large lot. It's a double pad situation. You got a step pad on the house is up on top, and then they have room for the pool, whatever they want to do. Just cautiously, again, I don't know if we want to condition it or if we can condition it, that can't be subdivided.
Okay, we can do that.
I don't know, some state laws have changed. on
Well, yeah, I
this.
mean, we're not gonna be able to condition something that's gonna be able to trump a future state law, which there's SB 9's pending right now, which would, but this is in the hillside development overlay zone in a very high fire severity zone, to where those areas are not subject to that lot split issue. So because of that, and the minimum lot size and access and all HDOZ standards, you know, we wouldn't allow for subdivision of that unless the state changes the laws that require us to allow it. So,
I just brought it up because we talked about this a couple of years ago.
Right. Same with an ADU, right under the city's ordinance, an ADU could not be built on that site because of it's an HDOZ and the very high fire severity.
Until we get trumped by the state.
Until that.
Yeah.
So no need for a condition?
I don't need for condition. I think that was the other notes that I have. Fire. Jessica, as far as look at this for the, I think there's a 200-foot fuel modification zone. Has it been looked at and can be accomplished on their own property versus somebody else's property?
I believe Russell put some notes in there in regards to that. But it still has to be the 200 feet.
Because I don't want to get the same boat that we have on another subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, based on the layout of this project, I don't think that that's going to be the case. It's all on site for the ones that aren't adjacent to existing development.
7 is the only one I'm kind of concerned
Well,
with.
I'd be worried about 4 with butting up to 8. And then 7 obviously will have their own.
Right, but eight's not a private, I mean, it's part of the development. So as Steve mentioned, there'll be an easement for fuel mod on lots 8 and 9 if needed within this project site. Because those are all under control. So those easements will be put in place so that the fuel modification can't happen on lots 8 and 9 if needed.
Yeah, 9, I mean, unless 9 is beyond the 200 feet, they might not need to, but
I don't know that 9 is either, except for maybe for the lot 7 house, maybe at the far southeast end of lot 9.
yeah, again, if it's more than 200 feet. So, I mean, without seeing exact dimensions of the lot lines and everything like that, I can't really comment in regards to that completely. But it will have to, every single place will have to meet our defensible space.
Steve, have you started on a fuel mod plan for this project?
Yes, we are. I think we show on the, in the biological report where the limits of the fuel mod zone are. And as I mentioned earlier on lot 9, prior to any transfer, all those easements will be put in place for the maintenance of the fuel mod within both lots 8 and 9. I know that we've worked with the county before. In some ways, the county, we may adjust the lot line to just be outside the debris zone where we have the high density oak trees, and that portion may be contained within lot 7. But for the most part, we will record the easements on those lots before anything is transferred to the county or to a public entity for the maintenance of lot 9.
Yeah, and then we'll still be part of the process to approve that. Is that correct, Eric?
Yes, obviously fire and our department stamps off on the fuel mod plans prior to issuance of grading permits.
Need to add a condition?
Perfect.
We'll add a condition that specifies that for fuel mod if it's not already in there.
Sorry.
I think that's it for me. Probably enough.
Richard,
I have nothing extra. Dominic said. For sure, though, it's gonna be a public street.
so that's what I think the one outstanding issue, I mean, that's obviously the way it's being proposed. I haven't had a chance to talk to Sean, so we've had a couple, just for everybody else. We've had some transitions of people that have been working on this project over the years. Internally here at the city, both project planners as well as the public works director who was involved early on, who has since retired. So our new public works director is not as familiar with the project as our previous one. So I do need to want to sit down with them and figure this out and make sure there's nothing else that we're missing with our city engineer as well. So we will be doing that in advance of the planning commission meeting to make sure. This vesting map obviously goes to the city council for approval. So planning commission is just a recommending body as well. There's some other outstanding issues I know that still need to be resolved in terms of that annexation process too, before it goes to council. So we have some time to make sure. I don't think this board this morning has a specific reason to prefer one versus the other, provided that the public works director, city engineer are both comfortable with the fact that the street would be made public, and then making sure that the property tax issue with the county and those negotiations allow for ongoing maintenance costs the city would undertake for that road. So that's all part, it really comes down to maintenance, right? Long-term maintenance, because obviously the development's gonna build out the street and the utilities. And so whether or not the cities are collecting enough property tax from the 7 homes in order to maintain this public street and the utilities from the utility building. So those are the kind of the over the big questions that I think we still have to do a little bit more work on internally. But for today's decision by DRC and recommendation, I think that we can go forward still. Steve or the applicants, Jessica, anybody else have any questions? And as Dominic made mention, you know, it's very important. We're going to modify some of these conditions of approval now after today's meeting as it goes on to the Planning Commission. But it's very important that you all look at those and read through those one by one to make sure there's nothing that's causing you concern or that you have questions about. So has there been any that you've identified at this point that you want to discuss at this meeting today?
I have reviewed the conditions. Most of them seem to be pretty standard. Some of the ones that Dominic went over, I think you've already addressed the issue if it's a public street, as far as the easement comments and the changes to some of the conditions. So I think those have already been talked about today, but I will go through them in more detail after this. And then if we have any more, we'll send an email in with any of our comments or concerns with any of the other conditions.
Okay. I don't have anything else to add either. Dominic stole all of our thunder. We, you know, we know this project's been a long time coming, and appreciate your patience with us as we process it internally, just because, as you're aware, we haven't done an annexation here in over 30 years. So nobody in this room has experienced it. Steve is kind of our applicant expert on the annexation process. So appreciate your assistance, Steve, on everything that you've helped out with regarding that. So we'll circle back with the applicants once we have these revised conditions. Vanessa will get those out to you as soon as possible. I know the Planning Commission report hopefully goes out tomorrow, Thursday at the latest. So it'll be the next day or two that those things will be resolved on the conditions of approval side. And then we'll also talk with our Public Works Department Director and just confirm that there aren't any other things that we're missing on the private or the public versus private road issue. So
I'm sorry. Chief Russell just stepped in.
Hey, Eric, and one thing, and I just want to
You're not in the video.
circle back to the letter that we had provided previously relating our concerns about fire protection and access and water supply for the project. So there was a letter that was drafted by Chief Summers and myself. So if we could make sure that those comments are included in the process, you know, relating our concerns, I would certainly appreciate it.
we will circle back on those as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
That's a good one. Good question. I don't know if I've necessarily seen that letter.
If it was Chief Summers, it was a while ago. So we'll find it and we'll send it over to you as well, Steve.
I just want to make sure that we're complying with everything.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate that. Okay, so I just double checked. We haven't had any requests to speak on this item. There's nobody else on the Zoom call. If there's no other comments.
I have one more quick
Yeah.
question. Is the Planning Commission, are they open hearings now or are they still Zoom?
So this meeting next week will be on Zoom as well. It's expected to be the last meeting that way at this point. And so if for some reason the item gets continued at Planning Commission, it's possible that a future meeting would be in person, but the August 11th meeting is scheduled to be on Zoom.
I just like making presentations better in person than on Zoom.
I understand. We had our first
The last year and a half in a lot of cities in the county.
We had our first in-person meeting at the council last night. And so that was kind of the test run because we had some technology issues. We're still trying to do a hybrid Zoom and in person for public participation. And so last night was the first time we were actually able to do a meeting that way. And because we weren't sure how that was going to go, we couldn't schedule next week's meeting that way as yet. But we hope that September we will have in-person meetings.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to those.
Yes. Okay, with that, I've got a complicated motion, but we have several revisions to conditions of approval regarding the easements for a private road versus public that have to be cleared up. conditions on authority of approving bodies for several things, including the bonding, the fencing, and then including the public works director on condition number 21. Adding conditions regarding fuel modification plan and easement. Adding conditions on, Vanessa, help me out. What else am I missing? Dominic.
The maintenance by the county.
Yeah, the lot, specifically conditions related to lot 8 and the transfer of that to LA County.
Bonds on 24. Removing some of the fire requirements on the side yards.
Yeah.
Correcting condition number 33 where we got garage doors under
Yeah,
vector control. That's pretty much it.
and then obviously we're gonna have some further discussion on the public-private street, as well as making sure that the fire department issues that were raised in our memo are being addressed.
Just one more question if I can. I know it's a vesting map. I did put a note 20 on the tentative, giving us the right to adjust lot lines on the final map. Hopefully that condition could be written in there. Again, that's only because we all know working with the county, they get pretty particular. We got some high density oak trees that we're proposing right now into lot 8. Early discussions with the county, that was fine, but down the road, the county may want us to pull some of that area out of their lot. I just want to make sure we're in a vesting map. We're not going to have any issues if we adjust lot lines between lot 7, 8, or 9 to accommodate fuel mod or some other reasons that we may want to adjust the lot lines.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, Dominic has indicated that would be okay.
We just need to be specific.
Do I need to put that in the condition or is it need to be written on
It
the
should
map?
be, no, it should be written in conditions.
Okay,
So that
7, 8, 9 lot line adjustments for fuel modification.
may be required based on discussions with LA County on ownership of lot 8.
With that, recommend approval on the PPR case, general plan amendment case,
No, not the PPR, just the annexation, the GPA, the zone change, and the tentative vesting tentative.
yeah, those 3. So that's PPR.
And those 4, annexation, GPA, zone change, tentative.
So yes,
Recommend those and then approve case numbers 102, 18 PPR and 60-19.
right, okay, yes.
All those in, is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. So 3-0, you got our support. We will see you next Wednesday evening for the planning commission meeting, and for that, so we'll be following back up with you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Everybody
Thank
have
you.
a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Right. We're gonna move on to the next item on today's agenda, which is an extension of the approval for Choose Fitness. I'm just gonna bring in the applicants, since he's been waiting for, patiently. Yeah. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
Of course, thanks for being here. I'm going to just give a real quick update. The commission or committee members, if I have some questions. This is a request by the Choose Fitness representatives for an extension of case number 122-19 PPR. The DRC approved that application on March 3rd of 2020 before the world changed. And so obviously that was for a Choose Fitness studio to go into the former Orchard Supply Hardware building at 2244 Foothill Boulevard. Due to the pandemic, the applicant had decided to not move forward at that time with the build out of that space. They did receive approval of the conditional use permits at the planning commission later that month on March 11th. So those approvals expired 1 year from their from when they were issued. The applicants now decided to move forward with building out that space and continue that process. So they are requesting a retroactive 1 year extension, basically to allow for them to submit to the building department for building plan check before March 3rd of 2022. and March 11th of 2022 for their CUPs. This will be going to the planning commission for those applications, but the DRC as the approving body for 12219 PPR is being asked to just simply issue a 1-year retroactive extension to that approval. There are no other changes to the project, the design, the hours of operation, nothing, everything else is the same as what was reviewed in March of 2020. With that, I'll ask if the committee members have any questions.
So there's two CUPs.
Yeah, so there's a typo in the memo, the first line. Case number 12219 is PPR, not a CUP. Then, so there's one precise plan. That was for the minor exterior modifications to the building, including the pool out at the former garden center. And the two CUPs, one's for the operation of the fitness studio. The second CUP is for late night, 24-hour operation, basically. That's why there's two CUPs.
I was not here for this, was I? So I remember the outdoor pool, maybe it was.
It was all part of the same project.
Yeah.
Yeah, you made, DRC made a recommendation on the CUP.
Okay.
So it was all for the same thing. Do you have any questions?
No questions at all.
Kevin, anything to add or that I didn't cover?
No comments from me. We appreciate your time and we're excited to come to the city and open.
Jessica, anything?
Obviously just sprinklers and any adjustments that'll need to be made. Fire alarm will all be separate submittals.
Right.
I think I had everything in there the first time around, so I don't have anything new.
Yep.
Unless anything's changing. And if the pool's gonna be outside, then that's a little easier too, with sprinkler protection, but that's it.
Great.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion to approve a 1-year extension to March 3rd, 2022?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, you got one extension down. The next one will be at the next Wednesday's planning commission meeting. That'll also be virtually on Zoom.
Great.
It'll work the same way. So we'll see you next Wednesday evening.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
All right. Bye now. And that concludes today's meeting. So we are now adjourned at 9:47 a.m. Our next regular meeting of the Development Review Committee will be held on Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. Here in this room, I don't believe we're going to be virtual any longer starting September unless things continue to change, and then we'll figure it out. But for now, I would expect that next meeting will be